Chosen one, listen carefully. Heaven took notice of your obedience. Every hidden act, every quiet yes you whispered when no one else believed in you. Every time you stood still when it would have been easier to run, heaven saw it. You did not obey for applause. You did not surrender for recognition. You obeyed because something deep inside you told you that God was testing your heart, not your comfort. There were moments you asked, "Does he even see me?" And the silence felt like a wall. You prayed and nothing shifted. You gave and nothing returned. You served when your soul was tired. But this is the mystery of the chosen. Heaven does not announce when it is watching. It observes in stillness. It measures your faith in secret places. It weighs your obedience in tears. Chosen one, when you turned away from what glittered and chose what was right, a record was opened in the courts of heaven. Your small act became a sound in eternity. Angels were dispatched, not because you shouted, but because you stayed. You did not curse God when life broke you. You bowed and whispered, "Your will be done." That whisper reached the throne louder than any sermon ever could. Do you know what happens when heaven sees obedience? The atmosphere shifts. Your name becomes a signal light in the spiritual realm. Darkness begins to tremble because obedience is authority when you obey. You align yourself with the rhythm of divine order. Every time you resisted the urge to give up, you rewrote a page of your destiny. Every tear watered a seed that will soon break through the soil. Many wondered why you were different, why you couldn't live carelessly like others, why the same compromises that left others untouched cost you your peace. It's because you carry a mark. You are not common. You are consecrated. There is an unseen oil upon you that cannot mix with the world. Heaven tailored your life with precision. Every delay, every detour, every loss was a divine choreography. And now, God speaks. I saw you obey when obedience hurt. I saw you keep walking when the road disappeared. I saw you forgive when betrayal tore your trust. I saw you worship when your heart was bleeding. He says, I have not forgotten. I have not overlooked. What you thought was silence was my preparation. What you called delay was my design. And now I am ready to tell you everything. Indel. The Word of God declares in the second book of Chronicles, chapter 16, verse 9, For the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth, to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to Him. The time of strengthening is here. The same eyes that saw you weep now see you rise. You were not buried, you were planted. You were not overlooked, you were preserved. You are standing in the season where heaven is ready to speak plainly, to explain every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every unexplained pain. So listen carefully. This message did not appear by chance. Heaven pressed pause on everything else so that these words could find you. You are standing at the edge of revelation. The gates that were locked are about to respond to your obedience. Doors that mocked your knocking will now open on their own. God is saying, because you obeyed, I can now trust you with what others misused. Because you bowed, I can now crown you. Because you stayed, I can now send you. The tests were not random. They were the proof heaven required before promotion. Every no you endured became the foundation for the yes that's about to echo across your life. But you must stay aligned. This is not the time to drift back into old habits or dull your discernment. Keep your spirit sharp. Keep your heart clean. Keep your ear open. The same obedience that brought you here will carry you further. There are secrets heaven will only tell to the ones who can be trusted with silence. You are one of those. You are not standing by accident. You were hand-picked. You were set apart to be a vessel of clarity in a noisy generation. While others chase approval, you chase presence. And because of that, revelation will chase you. Heaven has recorded your faithfulness, and the season of unveiling has begun. Let this be your declaration right now. Comment 777 as a prophetic act of agreement, a symbol that heaven's record of your obedience is complete and the next chapter is opening. Before you leave this moment, like, share, and subscribe to this channel, not for entertainment, but to stay aligned with the flow of divine revelation that's moving across the chosen ones. Your obedience was seen. Your name was spoken. Your season of revelation begins now. You thought the hidden season was punishment. You thought God's silence meant you had failed. You wondered why your prayers went unanswered. Why every door that looked promising suddenly closed. Why people who once walked beside you drifted away without reason. But heaven wants you to see differently. Now what you called abandonment was actually protection. What felt like isolation was divine insulation. When God hides you, it is never rejection, it is preservation. He places his chosen ones in seasons of obscurity, not because they are forgotten, but because they are too precious to be exposed too soon. If a fruit ripens before its time, it spoils quickly. But what matures in secret carries lasting sweetness. That is what happened to you. God was not punishing you, he was perfecting you. You cried out, "Why me, Lord?" When friends advanced and you stayed still, you saw others receive recognition, while your own faithfulness seemed unseen. Yet even in that silence, heaven was recording every step. The hidden season became the proving ground of your heart. God was not testing your talent. He was testing your trust. He needed to see if you would still praise him when nothing made sense. Chosen one, your hiddenness has purpose. You were never overlooked. You were concealed, like a seed beneath the soil, where the eyes of man cannot see, but the eyes of God see everything. In the quiet, your roots grew deeper. In the waiting, your discernment sharpened. The soil pressed against you. Yes, but that pressure was power forming within you. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Isaiah, chapter 45, verse 3. I will give you the treasures of darkness, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know that I am the Lord, the God of Israel, who summons you by name. When the world could not find you, heaven could. When people forgot your name, God whispered it again and again in the secret place. You did not lose time. You were gaining depth. Every unanswered prayer became the foundation of your endurance. Every disappointment became an invitation to intimacy. The silence taught you to recognize his presence, not by sound, but by stillness. In that hidden place, heaven stripped away distractions. You learned that obedience was not a performance, but a posture. You discovered that worship is not about music, it's about surrender. You learned that faith is not proven in the spotlight, but in the shadows, where no one applauds and no one affirms. There, you built strength that applause could never sustain. It is easy to shine when everyone is watching. It is holy to stay faithful when no one sees. That is what heaven saw in you. The unseen work of your heart became the evidence of your calling, while others sought platforms. You sought presence. While they pursued titles, you pursued truth. That is why God could trust you with delay. He knew the weight would not destroy your faith, but deepen it. Now, as light begins to break through the edges of your hidden season, you will understand what God was doing all along. He was shaping you into someone who would not crumble under weight, who would not be seduced by recognition, who could carry revelation without pride. He was teaching you the language of stillness so that when He speaks now, you will not mistake His voice. The hidden season was not the end of your story. It was the refining of your foundation. Every unseen act of obedience, every quiet surrender, every tear that fell without witness, they all became incense before His throne. And now, heaven responds to that fragrance. The time of unveiling draws near, not because you demanded it, but because you endured it. The Spirit of God is saying, I hid you to heal you. I silenced the noise so you could recognize my whisper. I withheld applause so you could learn the difference between calling and attention. I let you walk alone so you would never confuse people with my presence again. You did not waste your waiting. The years that felt like loss were divine investment. The pain you thought would break you was the very tool God used to anchor you. And when He finally reveals you, it will not be for display, but for destiny. You will emerge, not as one who merely survived, but as one who carries the weight of wisdom and the fragrance of fire. So, remember this truth. The hidden season was never punishment. It was prophecy in progress. Heaven never wastes pain. The soil that covered you was not your grave. It was your garden. When you chose obedience over comfort, heaven took notice. That single decision to follow His whisper instead of the world's noise shifted something eternal. You didn't obey because it was easy. You obeyed because your spirit knew peace lives on the other side of surrender. Every time you said yes when fear said no, you built an altar without realizing it. Heaven called that altar faithfulness. You didn't realize that when you gave up what you thought you needed, God was creating room for what He always intended. Every sacrifice, every delay, every not yet was writing your testimony. While others were chasing recognition, you were chasing righteousness. That is why your path felt lonely, because obedience is often a narrow road that few can walk. There were nights you wrestled with yourself, torn between what was comfortable and what was correct. You could have chosen ease, applause, and approval, but you chose truth. You turned down opportunities that didn't carry peace. You walked away from circles that didn't carry light. You protected your soul when the world told you to just move on. And in those moments, heaven said, this one can be trusted. As written in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 11, verse 28. Blessed are those who hear the word of God and obey it. You didn't obey halfway. You obeyed completely. You didn't wait for perfect timing or perfect understanding. You just moved when God said move. That is what separates the chosen from the crowd. The chosen ones don't need to understand how. They only need to hear who. Every act of obedience carries weight in eternity. The world may not reward it, but heaven always does. When you obey, you cause divine alignement. When you surrender, you give heaven permission to intervene. Your obedience has been shaking things in the unseen, moving mountains, redirecting storms, breaking patterns that have been in your family line for generations. That's why the battle was so fierce. The enemy wasn't fighting your blessing, he was fighting your obedience. Because once a heart commits to obey, hell loses its grip. You became a threat the moment you said, "God, I'll do it your way, even if it costs me everything." And it did cost you. You lost friendships that couldn't follow your calling. You let go of habits that numbed you. You walked away from what was almost right, so you could wait for what was holy. You didn't see it. But every step of obedience carved a path that others will one day walk behind you. You've become a living testimony that obedience still opens doors that talent never could. God is now saying, "You've proven that you can obey in the shadows, so now I will trust you in the light. You've proven that you can handle silence, so now I can trust you with revelation. You've proven that your heart bows before your blessing, so now I can release what's been held." Oh, chosen one. This is your moment of holy acknowledgement. Heaven isn't merely proud of you, it's ready to multiply you. Right now, type, "Still I'll follow," in the comments. It's more than a phrase, it's a declaration that even after the waiting, even after the tears, even after the misunderstanding, your answer remains the same. It's saying, "I won't return to what God rescued me from. I'll keep following, even when I don't see where the road ends." Now, let it be written once more in the courts of heaven that obedience is still your choice, not your burden. Because when you chose obedience over comfort, you didn't just survive, you set something eternal in motion. And that motion has heaven's full attention. You may not see the full picture yet, but obedience always unveils in layers. Each step of surrender prepares you for the next. What you understand tomorrow will make sense of today's pain. Trust that every yes is building something divine within you. When you whispered yes in tears, heaven echoed it in triumph. That quiet moment became a sound that reached eternity. What looked like small faith to you was mighty faith to God, proof that your heart values His will more than your comfort. Now, the heavens are aligning around your name. What once resisted you will begin to recognize you, because obedience shifts authority, and authority commands atmosphere. The same spirit that bowed in silence will soon speak in power and see mountains move. So keep your eyes fixed forward. Don't question the path simply because it's narrow. Narrow roads lead to holy destinations. You are walking toward revelation, not repetition. The obedience that began in pain will end in glory, and heaven will call it finished. When you obeyed, heaven began to move. Angels were assigned, and the records of your obedience were opened before the throne. Every act of faith you thought was forgotten is written in light. Nothing you did in His name ever faded away. It is all alive, stored in the archives of eternity. In the unseen realm, obedience has a sound. It is not loud to human ears, but in heaven it roars like a declaration of allegiance. When you said yes, something eternal shifted. Darkness was forced to release its grip. Confusion lost its power. Every time you trusted when you could not trace, heaven recorded it as victory. There are moments when you obey and nothing seems to happen. You pray, you move, you give, you forgive, and it feels like the heavens are still. But do not be fooled. The delay between your obedience and God's visible response is not silence, it is strategy. He is aligning what must move, so that when His response comes, it cannot be undone. The courts of heaven operate with order. Every act of faith is documented. Every word spoken in surrender is kept. When you chose to obey instead of complain, when you prayed instead of panicking, when you forgave instead of fighting back, those choices became evidence in your favor. Heaven does not forget the faithful. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 19, verse 5. Now, if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession. End 1. This is the mystery of obedience. It not only shapes your life, it shapes your identity. You are no longer ordinary. You are called treasured. You belong to heaven's inner circle, to the ones whose loyalty has been tested and proven. Your obedience has become the mark that separates you from the crowd. When God calls you his possession, it does not mean control, it means covering. It means that your steps are watched, your tears are stored, and your heart is guarded. Even when you thought you were walking alone, an entire army of angels was surrounding you. The moment you said yes, heaven assigned reinforcements. The enemy knew your obedience meant his defeat. Sometimes, obedience looks quiet on earth, but violent in the spirit. A simple act, closing a door, choosing peace. Walking away from temptation creates shockwaves in the unseen. Heaven celebrates it, hell fears it. The authority of a believer is not in noise, but in surrender. You may have felt tired, wondering if it's worth it. You may have thought, does God still notice me? But the truth is, every time you obey, your spirit emits a frequency that heaven recognizes instantly. You cannot see it, but your name glows in the spiritual realm. The more you obey, the brighter it shines. And while you walk through daily life, heaven is balancing scales, aligning timing, and preparing manifestation. God's response to your obedience is not always immediate because he is weaving justice with mercy, timing with trust. He ensures that when your reward comes, it won't be partial, it will be perfect. Chosen one. Understand this. The angels assigned to you do not sleep. They stand watch over every promise you have believed for. When you obey, you activate their movement. They arrange divine meetings, protect you from unseen harm, and open paths that no human hand could carve. Every instruction from God carries weight, and every yes from you carries authority. Your obedience has built a bridge between your prayer and his promise. It's why you've been under such spiritual pressure. The enemy has been trying to make you question the value of your obedience. But heaven says, keep standing. You are closer than you think. There are blessings already released with your name attached, hovering in the atmosphere, waiting for the appointed moment to manifest. You didn't lose them. They are simply waiting for the time when your maturity can carry their weight. What God releases too soon can become burden. What he releases on time becomes glory. The records of your obedience are open now, and the voices in heaven are speaking on your behalf. You are not waiting for recognition. You are awaiting revelation. Soon, what was hidden in the spirit will take form in the natural. What was stored will start to pour. So, walk with confidence. Every obedient step you take now is guided by divine intelligence. Heaven has seen your faith, and that is enough. The same God who watched you obey in the dark is about to honor you in the light. Heaven's response has begun. The unsealing is happening now, slowly, gently, like the sunrise after a long night. You may not even notice it at first. But something around you is shifting. Conversations feel different. Your spirit feels lighter. What was once confusing now begins to make sense. That's how revelation arrives, not with thunder, but with clarity. When God starts revealing the why behind your waiting, it changes how you see everything. You realize that every delay carried wisdom. Every no was a form of protection. Every closed door was a hidden mercy. Heaven does not withhold to harm, it withholds to heal. You were never being punished, you were being positioned. Now, God begins to unfold what He's been keeping for this moment. He says, I'm not just giving you answers, I'm giving you understanding. Answers satisfy curiosity, but understanding builds strength. When you understand what God was doing, peace replaces frustration, gratitude replaces bitterness, and purpose replaces pain. Your story is not random. Every piece of it has been woven together like golden threads hidden in dark fabric. The nights you cried, the seasons you waited, the steps of obedience that made no sense. Heaven was weaving them all into a design that could only be revealed now. As written in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verse 5, Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. You trusted when you could not see. You leaned on faith when sight failed you. That's why heaven now leans toward you with revelation. You are standing at the place where the puzzle pieces finally begin to fit. The questions that haunted you are being answered not through words, but through peace. Sometimes, God reveals not by speaking, but by settling. When the storm inside you goes quiet, it's because heaven has whispered. Now you understand. The unsealing begins in your heart before it shows up in your circumstances. And as this revelation unfolds, something powerful happens. You begin to see how God used people and moments to prepare you. A conversation that once broke your heart now feels like a lesson. A closed opportunity now looks like redirection. Even your own mistakes become testimonies of mercy. The more you understand, the more humble you become, because revelation is not given to make you proud, it's given to make you grateful. Chosen one. This is the time to pause and give thanks, to remember how far grace has carried you. There were moments you thought you wouldn't make it, and yet here you are, still standing, still believing, still hungry for His voice. That alone is proof of divine preservation. As you listen now, take a deep breath. Let the gratitude settle in your chest like warm light. You have made it through seasons others would have given up in. You are not here by luck. You are here by purpose. And when heaven finds a heart like yours, it continues to pour into it. If this message touched your spirit, take a moment to gently spread the light, like one candle passing its flame to another. Click like, share this message, and subscribe so that the next soul lost in silence might find their way home through the same light that found you. And there is one more gentle invitation. If you ever feel led to give, do it the way rain gives to the earth, quietly, freely, expecting nothing back but new life. Your giving keeps the message alive, helps the words reach further, and turns digital space into sacred ground. It's not a transaction, it's transformation. Heaven measures not the amount, but the love behind it. So give if you are moved, share if you are stirred, and subscribe if you want to keep walking this path of revelation together. Every small act, whether prayer, encouragement, or contribution becomes oil that keeps this flame from fading. Because revelation was never meant to stop with you, it was meant to flow through you. Every light that stays lit becomes a lighthouse for another traveler still searching the shore. You are that light now, and your simple acts of kindness, your share, your prayer, your giving are beams that heaven uses to guide others home. You are not giving to a person, you are giving to purpose. Every offering you release becomes a seed that travels where your feet cannot go, touching hearts you'll never meet. Heaven remembers generosity that is born from gratitude, not obligation. So let your giving, your sharing, your faith become living echoes of obedience. You have carried light through the dark, and now that light carries others, what you pour out in love will always return, multiplied in peace, provision, and divine presence. There is a book in heaven, and your tears are written in it. Every moment of sorrow, every silent cry, every time you said, "Lord, I still trust you." Even when your voice shook, none of it was lost. The divine ledger remembers. The pages of your pain are sacred, not forgotten. What broke you once has now become the very ink heaven uses to write your testimony. You see, God never wastes tears. Not one drop falls unnoticed. They are gathered, stored, and measured. And when the time comes, He turns them into oil, an anointing born out of affliction. You may not have realized it, but while you were weeping, heaven was working. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 56, verse 8. You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book. End. Think of that. Your pain is not random data lost in eternity. It is a documented covenant. The same hands that formed the stars have handled your sorrow gently. What you called breaking was actually molding. Each tear softened the clay of your heart so He could shape it into something eternal. You've endured nights that felt longer than promises. You've carried burdens no one saw. There were moments you wanted to stop believing, yet something in you refused. That something was not stubbornness. It was the Spirit Himself interceding, saying, "Hold on, heaven is almost ready." Oh, your obedience in suffering became proof of your authenticity. Anyone can sing when the sun shines, but only the chosen can worship in the storm. You kept praising, even when you were unsure what you were praising for. That is faith at its purest. Now heaven speaks. I saw the nights you thought you were alone. I saw the rejection that bruised your spirit. I saw how you gave, even when your hands were empty. And because I saw, I will restore. Oh, your season of sorrow is shifting into revelation. The same places where you wept will soon become places of wisdom. The people who once pitied you will one day seek your counsel. The ashes you thought defined you will become the fragrance of your calling. Chosen one, don't despise the tears anymore. They were the language of surrender when words failed. Every cry reached further than you think. It became a melody heaven couldn't ignore. And now, from those same tears, new strength is being born. Sometimes restoration doesn't come in the form of what you lost returning. It comes as peace so deep that loss no longer defines you. That is the miracle happening now. Your heart is healing in places even your prayers forgot to mention. Heaven has opened the book that holds your tears, and the ink of that record is turning into testimony. The very pages that once carried pain are now glowing with promise. You may still see fragments of what was, but God sees the full story of what will be. So let this moment settle deep inside you. Your suffering has not been in vain. Every tear you shed was a seed. Every ache of your heart was a prayer written in liquid faith. And God answers in His time with beauty that doesn't just replace the brokenness but transforms it. The same eyes that watched your tears fall are watching your restoration rise. Mercy is stepping forward on your behalf. The delay is over. The record is full. What heaven has written about you cannot be erased. You are entering a season where testimony will replace torment. Clarity will silence confusion, and joy will bloom where sorrow once lived. This is not motivation, it is prophecy. The God who counted your tears is now multiplying your reward. So right now, wherever you are, pause and let gratitude overflow. Whisper a quiet, "Thank you," for every unseen mercy. For every moment God carried you when you didn't even know it. And then, as a prophetic sign that you receive this season of divine exchange, comment 444 below. The number 4 represents foundation, stability, and divine order. It is heaven's way of saying, "What I am building in you will not fall." When you type it, you are not typing numbers, you are testifying, "I am standing on what God has written about me." This is your reminder. Heaven has not forgotten your obedience, your tears, or your prayers. The book is open. The ink is fresh. And your name is shining on every page. What once was pain is now prophecy. And the God who saw you cry is now preparing to make you laugh. The moment the veil lifts, everything begins to look different. You start to realize that what once felt like confusion was divine concealment. God never hides things from you, He hides them for you. There are treasures that can only be found when you have matured enough to handle them. Revelation without preparation destroys, but revelation with readiness transforms. When the veil lifts, your vision changes. You begin to see that nothing in your journey was wasted. Every betrayal becomes direction. Every loss becomes lesson. Every closed door was a divine hand, redirecting your steps away from danger you couldn't perceive. Suddenly, you no longer mourn what left you. Bless it for guiding you. You start to sense heaven's rhythm in everything. The things that used to frustrate you now teach you. The people who misunderstood you now remind you that calling is often lonely before it's celebrated. You see how God used silence to sharpen your discernment, how He allowed emptiness so you could recognize fullness. When revelation comes, it is not loud. It does not need to shout. It moves like light through curtains, quiet, persistent, unstoppable. It reaches corners of your heart you didn't know were dark. And in that moment, you understand why God waited. The veil lifts only when your heart is strong enough to see what's behind it. It was proclaimed in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 3, verse 16. But whenever anyone turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. End of 2. That turning was not a single act. It was a process. Every time you trusted instead of panicking, every time you waited instead of forcing, every time you worshipped instead of worrying, you were turning. Little by little, that turning caused the veil to loosen. And now, clarity comes like morning light after a long storm. What was blurry becomes clear. You finally see that God was not delaying your destiny. He was developing your depth. The revelation you carry now cannot be shaken, because it was learned, not given. You will notice it in small ways first. A peace that used to take effort now comes naturally. A situation that once triggered fear now stirs discernment. The conversations that used to drain you no longer reach you. That's how you know the veil has lifted. You are responding from wisdom, not wounds. Revelation is not about seeing more, it's about seeing right. And the moment your vision aligns with heaven's, confusion loses its voice. You realize that even your pain had purpose. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start saying, "Thank you for choosing me." Oh, as the veil lifts, humility deepens, because you recognize how much grace carried you. You see that your survival was not luck, it was mercy. The accidents that didn't happen, the breakdowns that turned into breakthroughs, the rejections that protected your future, all of them were signs of a God who never stopped managing your steps. You understand now that revelation is not meant to make you superior, it's meant to make you a servant. The light you've received is not for display, but for direction. First for you, then for others. Heaven does not reveal secrets to satisfy curiosity, but to equip vessels for mission. The veil lifting is not just the end of confusion, it's the beginning of assignment. What you now understand carries responsibility. To see clearly is to walk wisely. You cannot go back to who you were because you now know too much truth to live small. The lifted veil is not a trophy, it's a torch. This is where you stand now, in the clarity that comes from surrender. The same eyes that once looked at your pain and saw chaos now see design. You are beginning to trace the outline of divine intention. You can look at your past without bitterness, because you finally understand it had to happen this way. The revelation does not erase your humanity, it restores your hope. It shows you that the story was never broken, it was being built. Every time you thought you were losing, God was layering. Every time you thought He was silent, He was scripting. And now, standing in the light of understanding, you realize you didn't just survive the hidden season, you graduated from it. You no longer walk by sight, but by revelation. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer beg for answers, you carry them. The veil has lifted. The mystery that once tormented you now teaches you. The waiting that once wounded you now worships through you. You see with eyes that no longer fear the dark, because you have learned that even in darkness, God writes light. When God begins to speak again, His voice does not always arrive in thunder. Sometimes, it comes as a whisper that drifts through your thoughts and settles in your heart like soft rain on thirsty ground. The veil has lifted, and now you are hearing differently, not with your ears, but with your spirit. What was once noise is now melody. What once felt confusing now feels confirming. For a long time, you wondered if heaven had gone quiet. You prayed and heard nothing. You asked for signs and saw none. You feared that maybe you had wandered too far, that maybe His voice was reserved for others more spiritual, more worthy. But heaven was never silent. It was teaching you how to listen beyond the surface. The quiet was not punishment, it was training. In the early days of your faith, you needed loud confirmations, visible signs, and clear directions. But now, maturity has brought intimacy. You've grown to recognize that God's whisper is enough. He doesn't need to shout because your spirit has learned how to lean in. What once required thunder now responds to stillness. As Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 27, My sheep listen to my voice, I know them, and they follow me. No, you are one of those sheep. You have walked through wilderness and silence, but you never stopped listening. You might not have realized it, but every quiet nudge, every sudden peace, every moment of conviction that was his voice. He was not absent, he was closer than breath, shaping your inner hearing to match his divine frequency. Hearing God is not always about words. Sometimes it's about awareness. He speaks through patterns, people, pauses, and presence. He speaks in the stillness after prayer, in the verse that won't leave your mind, in the song that stirs tears for no reason. The closer you draw, the clearer he becomes, not because he changed, but because you did. God's voice carries weight, yet it never crushes. It convicts, but it doesn't condemn. It corrects with kindness and comforts with authority. His whisper carries power to part confusion, to redirect your focus, to realign your heart. When he speaks, even quietly, something in creation responds. Peace enters, showers leaves, and purpose awakens. The world around you will often compete for that frequency. You'll hear opinions louder than truth, fear disguised as logic, distractions dressed as opportunities. But the one who has learned to recognize the shepherd's tone cannot be easily deceived. You've learned to tell the difference between noise and knowing, between emotion and instruction. That's the gift of this season. You are no longer chasing voices. You are following the voice. You've grown past needing reassurance from people, because you have learned the rhythm of divine direction. When he says stay, you stay. When he says move, you move. And even when he says nothing, you trust that silence is not abandonment, it's assurance. There will come moments when his instructions feel too small to matter. Wait, rest, forgive, call them, let it go. But obedience to a whisper opens doors louder prayers cannot. Every small yes to his quiet promptings leads to large transformation. When God speaks within the whisper, he is not trying to hide, he is inviting intimacy. The whisper means you must draw close enough to feel his breath, close enough that distractions fade. His voice is not distant, it's deliberate. The whisper doesn't demand attention, it deserves it. This new sensitivity is sacred. Protect it. Guard your atmosphere. What you allow into your spirit will affect how clearly you hear. Keep your space uncluttered, your mind peaceful, and your heart humble. The whisper of God travels best through stillness. You may not always understand what he says immediately, but understanding will unfold with time. When God speaks, revelation comes in waves, not all at once. Each word becomes a stepping stone across the waters of uncertainty. As you obey the first, the next will appear, and as his voice grows clearer, you'll begin to realize that he never stopped guiding you. Even your detours were under his direction. Even your pauses were part of his plan. Every time you thought he was silent, he was leading you quietly through the terrain of transformation. Now, you walk with confidence, not because you have all the answers, but because you know the speaker. You no longer fear the silence, for you've learned it's the space where heaven's whisper takes shape. So when his voice comes soft, steady, unmistakable, pause and listen. You'll know it's him, not because of volume, but because peace will follow. His voice doesn't compete, It completes. It doesn't shout over the world. It speaks beneath it. And when it does, your soul will know it's time to follow again. There was a moment you almost missed it, the prophetic instruction that seemed too ordinary to matter. It wasn't wrapped in drama or thunder. It came quietly, like a nudge you could have easily ignored. You were standing at a crossroad of your destiny, and the voice of God whispered, "Wait." At first, that word frustrated you. Everything in you wanted to move, to prove, to act. Waiting felt like weakness. But heaven was testing not your ability to move, but your ability to pause. There are seasons when progress doesn't look like walking forward. It looks like standing still until the wind shifts. You didn't know it then, but obedience in waiting is one of the highest forms of trust. God wasn't trying to delay you. He was aligning what needed to meet you at the next step. The instruction you nearly overlooked was actually the key that kept you from spiritual collision. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 6, verse 16. Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is, and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. Chosen one. That crossroads was not confusion, it was calibration. Heaven positioned you there to refine your direction. Every time you felt torn between options, it was not because you were lost, but because God was filtering your path. He was separating what looked right from what was right. You see, not every open door is divine. Some are distractions dressed as opportunities, but heaven's instructions will never lead you where His peace cannot follow. When you waited, when you held your step in faith, the heavens rearranged circumstances around your obedience. You almost missed it. Yes, but you didn't. That quiet moment of hesitation, that pause before rushing ahead, became the proof that you were learning to move by revelation, not reaction. And God says now, that moment was the turning point. You didn't see the danger I redirected. You didn't see the trap I closed before you arrived. You didn't see the spiritual collision I prevented, but heaven saw your pause and called it protection. You learned something eternal in that pause, that the same God who opens doors also guards them. You learned that waiting is not inactivity, it's intercession in motion. Heaven doesn't see waiting as wasted time, it sees it as sacred trust. That's why discernment is rising in you now. You're beginning to recognize when something is good, but not God. You're learning to say, I'll wait. Not because you fear missing out, but because you trust divine timing. The prophetic instruction you almost missed became the foundation of wisdom you now carry. Sometimes obedience is loud, but often it is still. Sometimes it's walking on water, sometimes it's staying in the boat. You've learned, both are miracles when God commands them. That moment, you almost rushed ahead, became a revelation that divine timing is part of divine order. You're not late, you're preserved. You're not delayed, you're being positioned to arrive when destiny is ready. Not just when you are, God says, because you listened. I can now speak clearly, because you waited. I can now release what I was preparing, because you obeyed in silence. I can now trust you with sound. Len, you now walk in a rhythm that heaven recognizes. You've learned to listen beyond the noise. You've discovered that obedience isn't always action, sometimes it's alignment. Heaven measures both the steps you take and the ones you choose not to. That single instruction you almost missed became the hinge of your journey. Everything changed, though you didn't see it then. You are now living on the other side of that obedience. You are walking in the rest, promised in Jeremiah's words, rest that doesn't come from doing more, but from doing right. And now, heaven asks you to seal this revelation not with emotion, but with declaration. Type, "I still listen," in the comments. Let it echo through the unseen realm as proof that your heart remains tuned to the shepherd's voice. When you write it, you're saying, "Even when I don't understand, I still listen." No, this moment is your covenant renewal with heaven, the reaffirmation that your ears belong to God. Your pace belongs to His plan, and your future belongs to His perfect timing. When you type those words, you are not performing an act for others to see. You are marking a moment in the Spirit. It is heaven's witness that your heart still bends toward obedience, that your hearing is anchored in trust, not in circumstance. Each time you choose to listen instead of rush, you reinforce heaven's rhythm within you. That rhythm creates peace, and that peace becomes proof that revelation still flows through your spirit. The reward of obedience is not always ease, it is elevation. Heaven never promised comfort, only closeness. You've learned that following God does not exempt you from pain, it redeems it. Every trial you endured, every sacrifice you made, every quiet yes you whispered, all of it was building something eternal within you. When the rewards begin to appear, they rarely look like luxury, they look like peace. They look like clarity where confusion once lived. They look like strength you didn't know you had. The reward of obedience is the ability to walk through storms without losing your center. It's the calm that makes people ask, "How do you still stand?" The Word of God declares in the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse 9, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." You are walking proof of that scripture. Every hardship you survived has turned into wisdom. The pain that once weakened you now makes you powerful. You are no longer reacting to life. You are responding with revelation. Still, God reminds you, the climb of obedience is not without cost. To carry revelation means to carry weight. Glory always comes wrapped in responsibility. You cannot soar like an eagle without first learning how to fly against the wind. That is why your process felt so hard. It was training your wings for altitude. You are now at a turning point, standing on the edge of promise. You have been faithful with the unseen, and heaven is about to entrust you with the visible. But before you take another step, pause and breathe. Remember how far you've come, not just in distance, but in depth. Remember that obedience is not measured by how far you go, but by how true you stay. The reward you carry now isn't a trophy to display, it's a torch to share. The revelation you've received was never meant to stay silent. Someone else is walking through the same darkness you've already overcome, and your words, your light, your testimony could become the match that reignites their faith. That's why heaven uses these messages, not to entertain, but to reach. Every story, every moment of truth, every sentence you hear is part of a divine ripple touching lives you'll never meet. And when you support that ripple, you become part of the current that carries light across the world. So take a moment, if your spirit feels stirred, to quietly nurture the flame that once nurtured you. Click like if this message mirrors your heart. It's a simple act, but it tells heaven, "I agree." Share this with someone who might need the same reminder you once needed. And subscribe, if you wish to walk further in this stream of revelation, so you never miss the next whisper heaven releases. And if you ever feel led to go deeper to sow into what has poured into, you consider giving the way rain gives to the soil, gently, freely, expecting only growth. You're not buying a blessing, you're watering one. Every seed given in love becomes part of heaven's circulation system. It keeps the words alive, the flow continuous, and the light traveling farther. Think of generosity like planting a garden whose fruits you may never eat, but whose shade will comfort another weary traveler. That is what giving does. It builds resting places for other souls. And even if all you offer is a prayer, a kind comment, or a simple gesture of gratitude, heaven records it as worship. This is not about obligation, it's about overflow. When something nourishes you, the natural response is to help it reach others. Your support, whatever form it takes, becomes another echo of obedience, another act of partnership with heaven's purpose. Because when one chosen one strengthens another, light multiplies. When you share a message like this, you are not spreading content, you are spreading comfort. When you give, you are not losing, you are lending your flame to eternity. Let this be the gentle reminder. Obedience brings revelation, but gratitude sustains it. The same Spirit that helped you receive must now help you release, whether through your words, your actions, or your giving. Allow what touched your heart to flow through your hands. And remember, every time you give, share, or support, you are telling heaven, keep speaking, I'm still listening. You become part of the divine dialogue, one heartbeat in a global symphony of obedience. So, as you close this section, take a moment to thank God for how far you've come, for what you've learned, and for the revelation still unfolding. Then let your next act, whatever it is, be done with joy, not duty. Because true giving is never forced. It's the overflow of a heart that's been filled, and yours, chosen one, is overflowing. New doors are opening, not by chance, but by divine command. You are standing in a season where the things that once resisted you now make room for you. The atmosphere recognizes your name because heaven has spoken it aloud. What used to be difficult now begins to unfold with ease, not because the path has changed, but because you have. The doors before you are not random opportunities, they are prophetic assignments. Each one was carved by unseen hands, waiting for the sound of your obedience to unlock them. What others could not enter will open for you, not because of your power, but because of your posture. The gates respond to humility, the way metal responds to magnetism. It pulls what belongs closer. This is the moment where your preparation meets purpose. You've spent seasons learning to listen, waiting in silence, being refined in hiddenness. All of that was not wasted. It was heaven's way of ensuring you would know which door is divine and which is distraction. Not every open space is safe. Not every invitation is holy. But now, your discernment has matured enough to tell the difference. It is written in the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 8. I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. I know that you have little strength, yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. Definite, this is that door, the one you stopped chasing because you thought it was lost. The one that didn't open when you wanted it to, but now stands before you, unlocked by grace. You are not entering because of your effort, but because of endurance. Heaven honors persistence more than performance. When God opens a door, He doesn't just create opportunity, He releases authority. This new space is not a platform, it's a purpose. It's not about elevation, but expansion. You are being sent into places that need the fragrance of obedience, the wisdom of waiting, the light of someone who knows what darkness feels like. As you step through these new doors, don't forget the posture that opened them. Stay low. Move quietly. Carry peace like perfume. The same humility that drew heaven's attention will keep heaven's favor. Some doors require silence more than strategy. Some rooms open not because of your words, but because of your presence. And remember, new doors don't mean new striving. You don't have to push to stay in a place God prepared. You simply need to walk in with gratitude and guard your peace. The same grace that opened it will keep it open. There will be voices around you, some cheering, some questioning, some doubting, but your focus must remain on the one who called your name through the door. Don't let applause distract or criticism discourage. Neither has the power to define what heaven has already decided. You may feel unqualified for what's ahead, but grace specializes in appointing the unlikely. God is not looking for perfection, He is looking for trust. The places He's sending you require more authenticity than ability. You are not chosen for your polish, you are chosen for your purity of heart. Each new door will reveal more of who you are and who He is through you. Some will stretch you, some will surprise you, and some will feel like home. But all of them will align with what heaven wrote about you long before you doubted yourself. You will begin to notice divine connections, people whose spirits recognize yours instantly. Conversations will carry confirmation. Peace will guide your steps like a compass. You won't have to force anything. What's meant for you will flow naturally, almost quietly, as if destiny has been waiting for your arrival. Do not fear the unknown that comes with the open door. The same God who opened it will walk through it with you. You are not stepping into uncertainty, you are stepping into fulfillment. Every step you take is surrounded by angelic alignment. The door ahead is not an escape, it's an entrance into purpose. You've graduated from striving to flowing, from guessing to knowing, from waiting to walking. The sound of your obedience has become the key that fits heaven's lock. So walk through with confidence, not with pride, but with peace, not with hurry, but with holy assurance. Because when heaven opens a door, it is not just access, it is assignment. And this time, you will not have to knock. The door will recognize your name and swing wide open. Completion has a sound, and heaven is releasing it over your life. The waiting, the weeping, the wondering, all of it has reached its appointed end. You are standing at the threshold of fulfillment, where everything that once seemed scattered begins to align. You can feel it in your spirit, even before it manifests in your reality. The shift, the closure, the sense that what was incomplete is now coming full circle. This is not just another chapter, it is the sealing of a season. The refining fire has done its work, and what remains is gold. The heaviness that clung to you for years is loosening its grip. The lessons learned in silence are now becoming the language of wisdom. You are no longer the same person who began this journey. Heaven has reshaped you, matured you, and crowned you with understanding. As written in the book of Philippians, chapter 1, verse 6, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. No, this is your assurance. God does not start what He does not intend to finish. Every delay, every detour, every difficult lesson was a part of His design. Even when it felt like everything was falling apart, the truth is it was all falling into place. The completion of your test marks the beginning of your testimony. Chosen one. Heaven is announcing the end of striving. You no longer need to prove yourself. Your faith has already spoken louder than your fear. The season of refinement has produced resilience, and the fragrance of your obedience now rises like worship. You have walked through fire without losing your form, and because of that, you are being prepared to walk in fullness. Completion doesn't mean perfection, it means alignment. It's the moment when your will finally bows without resistance, when your heart beats in rhythm with heaven's timing. You've reached the place where your trust outweighs your questions. You no longer need all the answers because you've found peace in the process. This is the beauty of divine closure. God ties every loose thread, even the ones you thought were forgotten. Old wounds are turning into wisdom. What once felt like failure now becomes foundation. Every why is being answered by, now you see. Land. In this season, you may notice people reappearing, opportunities resurfacing, or prayers returning to memory. That's not regression, it's redemption. Heaven revisits only what it intends to restore. You are being shown how even the parts of your story that once caused pain are now necessary pieces of divine symmetry. The number assigned to this season is a sacred one, 555. It represents grace multiplied, transformation fulfilled, and divine transition. It is heaven's way of declaring that the period of testing has given birth to the era of testimony. When you comment 555, you are not typing numbers, you are proclaiming completion. You are declaring, I have finished the refining, and I am ready for revealing. End of 3. Grace upon grace is flowing now. What used to drain you will now refresh you. The strength you once begged for is now natural. The doors that resisted you will now welcome you, because heaven recognizes your maturity. Look back for a moment, not in regret, but in reverence. Everything that hurt you, everything that confused you, everything that delayed you, all of it was God's classroom. The lessons you learned in the dark have equipped you to carry light into places that are still waiting for dawn. Completion also carries responsibility. When heaven declares a season finished, it expects you to move forward without fear. Don't cling to what God has concluded. Don't water what He has uprooted. You can honor the past without living in it. This new phase demands both gratitude and boldness, the courage to let old versions of you rest while the new one rises. You will soon notice peace where anxiety used to live. You will sense purpose where uncertainty once thrived. You will walk differently, speak differently, even pray differently. Because completion changes posture. You are no longer reaching, you are receiving. Heaven smiles on those who endure, and endurance has crowned you. Every tear you cried became part of the anointing oil now resting on you. Every unanswered prayer became proof that God was writing a better answer than you imagined. The pages of your purpose are turning, and this chapter ends not in pain, but in peace. So let this moment be sealed. Comment 555 below as your prophetic act, a simple but powerful declaration that you accept completion. Let it be heaven's record that you have learned, you have trusted, and you are ready. The test is complete. The refining is done. The unveiling begins. When God speaks through signs and delays, He is not playing with your time, He is perfecting your timing. The chosen ones learn that silence is not absence, and waiting is not punishment. Every delay is language in disguise. Heaven communicates in rhythms, not rushes. And what looks like stillness on earth often sounds like movement in eternity. There were seasons you prayed for open doors, yet nothing shifted. You thought heaven had forgotten. You assumed your prayers had fallen into empty air. But now you begin to understand. The delay was not denial, it was divine choreography. Heaven was aligning invisible details, preparing hearts, and refining your motives before release. Sometimes, God uses delay to protect what is precious. If certain blessings had arrived earlier, they would have overwhelmed you, not blessed you. Divine pauses are not rejection, they are insulation until you are ready to carry the weight of what you asked for. When God seems slow, He is actually safeguarding your destiny from premature exposure, according to what is revealed in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it lingers, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. That, you see, God's timing is not measured by calendars, but by completion. He waits for maturity, not for months. He answers when the soil of your heart is ready to hold what He is planting. Every delay is a teacher disguised as time. It trains your spirit to stay anchored when everything around you is uncertain. You have walked through those stretches of waiting days that felt endless, nights filled with unanswered questions. Yet, beneath that stillness, heaven was sculpting something within you. You were learning endurance without bitterness, patience without pride, and faith without evidence. The delay was chiseling your character to fit the destiny you will soon carry. The greatest mistake many make is confusing divine timing with divine forgetfulness. God never forgets. The same prayers you whispered years ago are still alive, echoing through eternity. They did not die, they were stored. Heaven archives faith until the perfect moment to release fulfillment. When God delays, it is because He values design over demand. You wanted quick answers. He wanted eternal outcomes. You sought relief. He sought revelation. Every slow miracle becomes a lasting one. That's why the things that took longest to arrive will last longest when they do. The delay also exposes your foundation. It shows whether your faith is built on feelings or conviction. When you waited and didn't quit, heaven marked that as faith at its purest, because it's easy to trust God when things make sense. But rare faith blooms in confusion and refuses to die. You will look back soon and thank God for every closed door, every postponed blessing, every no that protected you from what you weren't ready for. You'll see how the delays didn't take you off track. They became the track. Each pause redirected you toward purpose you didn't even know you needed. Even creation understands this rhythm. Seeds must rest before they rise. The night must fall before morning breaks. Tides retreat before they return stronger. The pattern of heaven is not linear, it's layered. You were never behind. You were being built. And as you step into clarity now, you'll notice that everything you once begged for begins to arrive naturally. The waiting was never wasted. It was weight training for your faith. The strength you gained in the delay will sustain you in the delivery. Do not despise slow seasons. They are the wombs of miracles. Inside the delay, God hides direction. Inside the silence, He builds sensitivity. You are not waiting for Him, He is waiting with you. The moment your readiness and His will meet, manifestation will no longer delay. Now, when time seems to stand still again, you will know what it means. It is heaven saying, "Hold still, I'm finishing the details. You can rest." Not because everything is clear, but because the author of your story never writes without purpose. The delay was not to punish you, it was to prepare the world for your arrival. When you finally step into your next chapter, you will realize that every second of waiting was sacred. You didn't lose time, you gained transformation. And when that divine appointment finally meets your faith, you will not rush, you will recognize. The very signs that once confused you will confirm. This was worth the wait. No, the mantle is falling now. The one heaven has been preparing for you all along. You have carried its weight in the Spirit long before you ever saw it in your hands. This is not a gift you stumbled into. It is an inheritance that waited for your obedience to mature. The mantle you were meant to carry was not earned through performance, but through perseverance. For many seasons, you felt unqualified. You watched others step forward while you stood in the background, wondering if your time would ever come. You compared your journey to theirs and thought you were late, but you were actually in process. Mantles are not handed to the impatient, they are entrusted to the proven. Heaven does not crown talent, it crowns endurance. Your process was not punishment, it was proof. Every trial, every test, every delay refined your capacity to carry glory without pride and authority, without arrogance. God could not give you this weight before your heart could handle it. To wear a mantle is not to be exalted, it is to be entrusted. As spoken in the second book of Kings, chapter 2, verse 13. Elisha then picked up Elijah's cloak that had fallen from him and went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan. That single moment marked transition, not just for Elisha, but for generations after him. And now, you stand at a similar riverbank, the border between what was and what will be. The mantle that once hovered over your life is now resting on you. You no longer reach for it, it recognizes you. This mantle is not a title or a platform, it is a calling woven into your being. It's the reason your spirit never fit into ordinary spaces, the reason certain environments made you restless, the reason you could not ignore the pull of purpose. You were not designed to blend in, you were designed to bear weight. To carry a mantle means to carry people, those who will find healing, direction, or courage through your obedience. You will be sent to speak where silence has ruled, to stand where others have fallen, to shine where hope seems impossible. The mantle is not for decoration, it is for deployment. And though it rests upon you now, you must remember, every mantle carries both power and responsibility. The same fire that anoints can also expose. The greater the light, the more it reveals. That's why humility must walk beside you as closely as boldness. Heaven doesn't just want powerful voices, it wants pure vessels. Do not fear the weight of what you carry. The mantle comes with the strength to bear it. You won't need to strive for opportunities, they will recognize what you now carry. The authority of heaven moves quietly but unmistakably. Those who walk with true anointing do not need to announce it. Their presence testifies on its own. But also know this: mantles are never meant for isolation. Even Elijah needed Elisha. Even Moses needed Joshua. You will need people not for validation, but for alignment. The mantle works best in community, where hearts are unified and motives remain pure. In this season, discernment will guide you to divine partnerships. Some will pour into you, others you will pour into. Together, they will form the circle that sustains the call. The weight you carry is not a burden, but a bridge, connecting heaven's intent to earth's need. You will begin to sense this mantle in subtle ways, a new authority in your words, a deeper compassion in your prayers, a calm power in your presence. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. The Spirit within you is now operating at a new frequency. The world may not yet see it, but heaven already does. The oil that once dripped is now flowing. The mantle you wear will speak louder than your mouth ever could. Every room you enter will shift, not because of who you are, but because of what you carry. Remember always, this is not the end of your journey, but the beginning of your assignment. The wilderness prepared you, the mantle releases you. You are not stepping into status, you are stepping into service. The world doesn't need another name, it needs another flame. So walk clothed in humility, wrapped in purpose, and covered in grace. You are carrying heaven's answer for this moment in history. Wear it well, for you were always meant to. The mantle will not make life easier, it will make it meaningful. Every challenge ahead will reveal deeper strength, sharper vision, and greater dependence on the one who called you. Let your steps be steady, your heart soft, your spirit anchored, for where this mantle leads, grace will always go before you, clearing every unseen path. Rise now, torchbearer of the new era. The time of silence has passed. The hour of shining has come. You have walked through fire, carried your cross through the valley, and now you stand clothed in light. The crown you wear was not handed to you. It was forged from the trials you survived. Heaven does not give crowns for comfort, but for conquest. You are not the same person who began this journey. The one who once trembled in uncertainty now stands unshakable. Every scar has turned into strength. Every tear has become oil. You have endured. You have obeyed. And heaven is proud. You are rising not just for yourself, but for those still struggling to believe that light can come after darkness. The Apostle wrote in the first letter of Peter, chapter 2, verse 9, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of Him who called you out of darkness into His wonderful light." That light now burns within you. You carry heaven's flame in fragile human form, but its power is eternal. You are not called to outshine others. You are called to outshine your yesterday. Your presence itself becomes prophecy, proof that grace can grow in the ashes of struggle. You are heaven's torchbearer, carrying flame into places that forgot what warmth feels like. Every word you speak, every act of kindness, every moment of integrity lights another small fire. Together, those flames become a movement, one that cannot be contained by walls or platforms. You are part of heaven's wildfire, spreading light without seeking applause. And yet, even fire needs tending. Flames die when isolated. They thrive when shared. That's why connection matters not for fame, but for fuel. You are not meant to burn alone. When chosen ones gather, light multiplies, and darkness has nowhere left to hide. If this message stirred something deep inside you, let your flame respond. Click like as a quiet yes to the light awakening in you. Share this message with someone still walking through their night. It might become their sunrise. Subscribe. If you wish to stay connected to this flow of light and revelation, walking shoulder to shoulder with other carriers of fire. And then, leave a comment below. Write, "I carry light," not for visibility, but as a prophetic act, a declaration that you recognize what heaven has placed within you. When you write it, you're saying, "I choose to shine, even when it costs comfort." Now, if your spirit ever feels moved to give, do it the way a river returns to the sea freely, joyfully, expecting nothing but flow. Think of it not as giving money, but as adding wood to the fire, ensuring that the warmth you felt here keeps reaching those still lost in the cold. Your support, no matter how small, keeps this flame alive in unseen ways. Generosity, in its truest form, is worship. When you share, when you give, when you speak gratitude, you are participating in the divine rhythm of light, multiplying itself. You are saying, "I want this fire to keep burning, not just for me, but for the next heart waiting to be found." And because to be a torchbearer is not to hoard the flame, it's to pass it. Your kindness becomes kindling. Your compassion becomes spark. Your presence becomes warmth. The world needs what you carry, and heaven trusts you to carry it well. So keep tending the fire. Keep your heart soft, your hands open, your spirit humble. Let your life itself become the offering. Every breath, every act, every prayer, a flicker of gratitude that joins heaven's great blaze. The light is moving. It's alive in you. And as long as you choose to share it, give it, and live it, the flame will never die. Your journey has not been about reaching perfection. It has been about becoming pure light. You were refined until nothing false could remain, so that what shines now is genuine faith, steady and enduring. Every spark you've protected, every prayer you've whispered, every moment you chose peace over pride, heaven saw it. Those quiet victories built the flame that guides others today. When you doubt your impact, remember, a single candle can change the mood of an entire room. The smallest act of love can alter the atmosphere around a soul. That is the quiet authority you carry. So, walk forward gently. Torchbearer, keep your flame alive in kindness, your purpose steady in patience. You were never meant to burn out. You were meant to become an everlasting glow in a world hungry for warmth. Now, heaven's strategy unfolds before your eyes. For years, you saw only fragments, a closed door here, a broken connection there, an unexpected detour that made no sense. But now, like pieces of a divine mosaic, every part begins to fit. The same pain that once confused you now reveals its purpose. The very storms that tried to drown you have delivered you to the shore of understanding. When heaven reveals strategy, it doesn't always come as a plan. It often comes as perspective. God doesn't just tell you what to do. He shows you why it mattered that you waited. You begin to see that what felt like stagnation was in fact sacred alignment. Every delay was choreography. Every heartbreak, a redirection. Every loss, a lesson in trust. As revealed in the book of Genesis, chapter 50, verse 20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Those words now live in you. The same truth Joseph discovered has become your revelation. Everything that was meant to break you has been rewritten into blessing. You no longer look at your past with regret, but with reverence. What once wounded you has become wisdom. What once threatened you has become testimony. This is heaven's strategy to make you a carrier of redemption. Your life itself has become a message where others see loss. You see shaping where others see delay. You see design. You've learned to look at pain through prophetic eyes and to see that even destruction can serve destiny. You may not have understood it at the time, but God was weaving connections across seasons, preparing people, and placing opportunities where they needed to be. The doors that once closed in your face were never rejection. They were protection against premature exposure. Heaven knew when and where you should appear, and it waited until the world was ready for what you carried. Now that timing has come. You have grown into your calling, and heaven's blueprint is unfolding. You begin to recognize divine fingerprints on moments you once dismissed as coincidence. The people you met, the prayers that didn't go as planned, the endings that forced new beginnings, all of them were part of a larger rhythm. You see now that God's strategy was never to rush you into success, but to root you into substance. He built your foundation deep enough to hold glory without collapse. You are not being positioned for attention, you are being prepared for assignment. The strength you gained in solitude is now the stability others will rely on. Heaven's strategy always begins with hiddenness and ends with revelation. What once required faith will soon require stewardship. The weight of glory now resting on you is not meant to crush, but to commission. You will walk into environments that need your peace more than your words, your presence more than your power. And though the road ahead may still twist and turn, your perspective has changed. You no longer fear uncertainty because you've met God there before. You've seen how He works through what looks like chaos, turning ruins into rhythm and waiting into worship. The strategy of heaven is not always clear, but it is always kind. There will be moments when others question how you remain so calm amid uncertainty. They won't understand that you've seen behind the curtain, that you know delay does not mean defeat. You've learned to trace the pattern of providence, even when it hides beneath pain. This revelation brings peace, not the fragile peace of quiet circumstances, but the deep, unshakable peace of divine confidence. You no longer need to control outcomes, because you trust the orchestrator. Every twist in your story has been part of heaven's design to bring beauty from ashes, harmony from heartbreak. Heaven's strategy is unfolding still. It doesn't end here, it expands. The lessons you've learned will now guide others who are still in their waiting. Still, in their wondering, you will be the living evidence that God wastes nothing. That time spent in surrender is never lost time. What once felt like wandering was actually guidance. What once looked like fragments has become foundation. And as you stand here now, you understand what heaven was doing all along, building not just a story, but a strategy that glorifies Him through you. Every moment you thought was random has now revealed its rhythm. Heaven never missed a beat. It was composing your life into a song only revelation could complete. So breathe. Chosen one. Rest in the masterpiece that's still unfolding. The same hand that wrote your wilderness now writes your wonder perfectly, purposefully, eternally. And now, the final unveiling begins. The whisper you once followed in the dark becomes the voice that guides you through the dawn. Everything heaven intended for you, every revelation, every promise, every piece of destiny has been leading to this moment. God is ready to tell you everything, not because you demanded to know, but because you proved you could be trusted with truth. The mysteries that once tormented you are now becoming clear. You see how every unanswered prayer was mercy in disguise, how every delay was a doorway to deeper faith, how every heartbreak made space for heaven's hand to rebuild your heart. You understand now that revelation is not given to satisfy curiosity, but to solidify calling. As written in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 13, verse 11, the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven has been given to you, but not to them. This is the moment of divine disclosure. Heaven is opening what was sealed, revealing the hidden purpose behind every season. What you thought were accidents were actually instructions. The detours were direction. The pain was preparation. You have graduated from hearing God through circumstances to hearing Him through communion. You no longer chase signs, you recognize presence. Revelation begins to flow, not in scattered drops, but in steady rivers. The questions that once haunted you fade as the answers take root inside you. You don't just know what God was doing, you understand why He did it this way. The strategy, the silence, the suffering, all of it converges into one truth. You were being sculpted for something sacred. Heaven begins to show you the blueprint of your journey, layer by layer. The years of pruning were for purity. The losses you grieved were exchanges for greater gain. The people who left were never punishment. They were part of God's protection plan. The places where you thought you were buried were actually the gardens where faith grew. When God tells you everything, it doesn't come as noise. It comes as knowing. You feel it deep within your spirit. The peace that passes understanding. The calm that confirms clarity. You no longer need to ask, why did it happen? Because you can now say, thank you. It happened. You begin to realize that God was not just writing your story. He was writing through you. Every trial has turned you into a message. Every victory has become an invitation for others to trust Him too. The revelation you now carry is not for display, it is for direction. You were never called to impress, you were called to impart. In this moment, you see your life from heaven's view. You see that every chapter, even the painful ones, served the final design. You were the clay. He was the sculptor, and every pressure point was a stroke of precision. The masterpiece He was forming was not around you, it was you. The voice of God now speaks gently. This is why I chose you. This is why I hid you. This is why I let you walk through fire. Because what I placed inside you needed heat to awaken. What I called you to carry required endurance to protect. You finally understand that divine revelation is not a reward for effort. It is a recognition of readiness. Heaven only tells everything to the heart that has proven it will obey even when it does not understand. That heart is yours. Now, as the light of understanding fills your spirit, gratitude becomes your language. You no longer question the path, you honor it. You no longer fear the unknown, you trust the unseen. The mysteries of heaven have become memories of mercy. You are no longer a seeker of signs, you are a steward of secrets. You have become the fulfillment of what you once prayed to understand. And now, you walk not with uncertainty, but with unshakable peace. Heaven smiles, not because you finally have answers, but because you finally carry revelation with humility. You know what matters most, not the details of destiny, but the depth of devotion. The real revelation was never information, it was transformation. And so, as the final seal breaks, and heaven tells you everything, you realize this truth. You were never waiting for revelation, revelation was waiting for you. The voice that once guided you in mystery now walks beside you in clarity. You are no longer searching for direction, you have become the direction for others. Rest in that revelation. What heaven started through whispers now lives through you, truth in motion, light in flesh. A living reminder that divine stories always end in glory. If you've walked through every word of this journey, you already know this was never just a script, it was a mirror. Every line reflected your own awakening. Every pause carried a whisper from heaven straight into your heart. You didn't just listen, you remembered who you are. Now take one quiet breath. Feel the stillness around you. That calm isn't emptiness, it's evidence that revelation has done its work. Something inside you has changed. You are lighter, clearer, stronger. If this message stirred something deep within you, let that feeling flow outward. Click like, not out of habit, but as your gentle amen, your agreement with what heaven just confirmed in your heart. Share this message with someone still searching for light in their midnight. Your small act might become their sunrise. And subscribe if your spirit wants to stay in this rhythm of renewal. Each message arriving like another page in your unfolding story. Before you leave, write a comment below. Just a word, a line, a quiet thought. Maybe simply, I receive this. That single act is your echo back to heaven, saying, the message found me. And if you ever feel led to give, do it softly. Give like a candle lighting another without losing your own flame. Give like rain returning to the earth that once fed it, freely and full of gratitude. Your support, whether through words, prayers, or gifts, becomes the unseen thread that carries these messages to others who need them most. What began as a whisper has become a fire, and now that fire lives in you. Carry it forward. Shine gently. Love deeply. And let your life become the continuation of the light that found you here.